right, we just ended the last segment talking about the FBI. I want to drill a little bit deeper into that. You probably remember last month, FBI Director Christopher Wray was literally grilled at a Judiciary Subcommittee hearing on the FBI oversight, and Director Wray was asked specifically about a memo targeting certain Catholics and claiming them to be potential violent extremists. Well, here is one of his responses to that question.
Well, what I can tell you is you're referring to the Richmond product, which was a single product by a single field office, which as soon as I found out about it, I was aghast and ordered it withdrawn and removed from FBI systems.
Oh, really? Really? A single product coming from a single field office. And once he found out about it, he took care of it. Well, not according to a new document that shows the involvement of multiple field offices in the creation of the memo's assessment. Well, joining me now to offer his insights is Kyle Seraphin. He's a former FBI agent and the initial whistleblower who brought many of the revelations of a politicized FBI to light. Kyle, welcome back to Washington Watch. It's great to have you, sir.
Well, thanks for having me on, Jody.
Well, listen, before we get into what was just uncovered, can you give us just a quick refresher course on the memo itself and how it came to light?
Yeah, absolutely. So I left the FBI in April of 2022. I had my badge, my gun removed. This was after whistleblower activity related to dealing with parents at school board meetings, an allegation that I made that the Attorney General may have committed perjury. And so that's the background. That got me out of the FBI's field office, but it didn't keep me from looking into what was going on at the FBI. And obviously, I had a lot of contacts there. I had a whistleblower approach me and ask for a route to Congress in order to expose a intelligence product, which basically drew a line around radical traditionalist Catholics, which was a term I was not familiar with until this document. And it stated that Latin Mass Catholics likely have common cause with white supremacists, and therefore the FBI should be introducing various different methods to combat that, including recruiting sources inside the Catholic Church, which was pretty eye-opening to me and also to the individual who brought it to me, who was not a Catholic, but is someone who took their oath seriously. And so when that happened, I wrote just sort of a expose, if you will, at uncovereddc.com with Tracy Beans. And we gave the entire document to the media. We gave it to the public because it is the American people's tax dollars at work. And we said, here's my write-up on it. This is what my take is. I used to work in the intelligence field, so I understand how they're written. But you could do what you want with it because a lot of different people wrote stories about it everywhere from Daily Signal, Daily Caller, Daily Wire, you name it. People went out and this went pretty big. I ended up on Tucker Carlson talking about it. And the basic story is that this is a problem. It's a First Amendment protected activity, and it shouldn't be where the FBI is going. It was where they went, led to a bunch of questions, and that got us to the point where Jim Jordan's committee has been asking more and more, what in the world went on here? How did the FBI ended up in this scenario? And then, even though I think Chris Wray probably avoided a perjury trap by what he said, because it did originate from one field office and it was one document, there were multiple field offices involved in getting the information behind it, which is kind of what we all suspected, those of us who work in this sort of world.
And it's all deception in the answer. I mean, he knew very well that there were multiple offices. And I mean, you don't have offices in Portland or San Francisco or wherever all these may end up coming out of, just doing something like this at the spur of the moment all at the same time. Somehow this is people following a directive. Isn't that correct?
I believe so. Yeah. So this is a single intelligence product that was trying to create what I would call like a seed crystal. People can imagine the initial cell of a seed and it builds around it. When you're doing intelligence work, you're trying to build up a body of work that justifies, what your job is. That's what these intelligence analysts do. So this was the initial product that went out there doing that, but it was gathering from multiple different sources in different field offices. This included human sources and some reporting that they had that came out of Portland and Los Angeles. And the idea is we're going to generate this sort of fake threat because there's this like massive demand for white supremacy in the FBI, and the supply doesn't really meet it. So let's see if we can find it in the Catholic Church. And the whistleblower who brought it to me and we got to Congress basically said if they can get into the Catholic Church, they can get into any other Christian denomination, because this is just a pry bar to go after Christians in general. And almost all of the positions that they were espousing that were so-called white supremacist positions, they're just mainline conservative positions. They're about abortion. They're about LGBTQ issues. They're about border security, of all things. And so when you go into these are mainline Christian and mainline conservative causes. This is the FBI trying to go after conservatives.
Well, and I hope everyone heard what you just said. This is nothing other than a pry bar being used by the federal government to look under the hood of Christians and houses of faith and different denominations. And this is a massive violation of our First Amendment. Now, the investigation is still ongoing. What do you think the Judiciary Committee, I mean, obviously they're wanting more information. What are they looking for?
They're looking for the names of the people that approved it, because this was approved by both an intelligence analyst, an intelligence supervisor. Then it went to an attorney who was the lead person in the Richmond field office. They're going to want to know who was also approving these source operations that were happening in the other field offices. So now we have multiple field offices involved. So there's a web of people that are interested in going after Catholics. The question is, who are they and how pervasive is it in the FBI? We also saw stories like Mark Hout, who was arrested by the Bureau in Philadelphia. So there's other anti-Christian, anti-Catholic bias that is being seen. And the craziest thing about it, for those of us that worked in the FBI is one of the most Christian and probably the most Catholic organizations that I've ever seen in the federal government. There are so many Catholics that work there, and even Latin Mass Catholics who would travel from Quantico while they were at the academy would go down to some of these parishes in the Richmond field office. And they reached out to me individually, even though I was out of the Bureau, and they were furious with what this said. So there is this strange dividing of the ranks, and obviously they're targeting people even within the Bureau.
All right, 30 seconds left. FBI Director Wray says that there is an inspection underway. Explain to us real quickly, what does the FBI mean by an inspection?
So there's an entire division. It's called Inspection Division. They're supposed to do internal investigations, but you'll be shocked to learn that when the FBI investigates itself, it often finds that the FBI is not guilty of what the FBI has accused itself of. So it often comes up in a very favorable manner. You know, the government looking after the government is not a good watchdog.
Wow. Thank you, former FBI agent Kyle Seraphin. Always great to talk with you. Thank you for your leadership.
That's my pleasure.